At 56, Nicole Kidman filmed scenes so intense, she admitted they left her physically overwhelmed. At 57, she sat through a divorce she never wanted. At 58, she walked into an interview and said something that stopped the room. This is the same woman who nearly quit a major biopic after death threats online. The same woman who shaved her eyebrows for a role and stayed in character for months. The same woman whose own children were raised inside a world she couldn't reach. Now she's alone again, and instead of hiding, she dropped a bombshell that even her closest circle didn't expect. Nobody was prepared for what came next. Nicole Kidman entered the world in a place that did not match where her life would actually unfold. She was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, on June 20, 1967, while her Australian parents were in the United States on student visas at the University of Hawaii. Her father, Anthony, was studying biochemistry, and the family never planned to stay in America for long. Yet her birthplace still mattered. Because she was born on American soil, she automatically qualified for US citizenship. And because her parents were Australian, she also inherited Australian citizenship. So, from the beginning, she belonged to two countries at once, even if she would grow up with Australia in her voice and in her bones. Not long after her birth, her parents moved to Washington, D.C., and the atmosphere around her was anything but quiet. They became active in anti-Vietnam War protests, marching through the streets of the U.S. Capitol and demanding peace. Nicole was only a baby, but she was often carried along in her mother's arms while chants rose and signs lifted. That early contrast settled into her story. She started life surrounded by loud public conviction, yet later she would be known for craving privacy, as if she spent years trying to find a calm place after beginning in a storm. When she was around 3, the family returned to Australia and settled in Longville, a leafy suburb on Sydney's North Shore. The setting was ordinary and gentle, but people around her noticed something unusual in the girl herself. She attended Lane Cove Public School and later North Sydney Girls High, and teachers saw an intensity that did not fit her age, like she was reading the room more than she was trying to lead it. While other kids argued and rushed, she listened and watched, tracking moods and small shifts in expression as if feelings were something you could study and map. That way of watching people connected easily to the first place she found a stage. From the age of 3, she was in ballet, learning control and posture before she even knew what acting could be. Then, when she was 6, a simple school Christmas pageant gave her a role that sounds funny now, but mattered a lot then. She was cast as a sheep and had to shuffle across the stage and bleat in front of a crowd. Instead of freezing, she felt a rush. There was something about stepping into a part, even a silly one, and feeling the room turn its attention toward you and realizing you could hold it. At home, there was another influence shaping her, and it was deeper than applause. Her father, Dr. Anthony Kidman, was not only a scientist, but also a clinical psychologist and a mental health researcher in Australia. He wrote and spoke about anxiety, depression, and cognitive behavioral therapy, and pushed for early support for young people struggling with mental health. That meant her childhood conversations were often about what people carry inside about fear, trauma, and the way the mind can twist reality. Without trying to, she was being trained to notice what others hide. And later, that skill would show up in roles where she felt almost too real. Then, when she was 14, life pressed hard on her family, and the world stopped feeling like school and dance and dreams. Her mother, Janelle, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and Nicole's teenage years suddenly became shaped by care and responsibility. She dropped parts of her usual routine and focused on helping at home, even learning massage techniques at a local institute so she could bring her mother some physical relief. Night after night, she watched the people she loved deal with pain and exhaustion, and it changed her. It did not just make her tougher, it made her more tuned in to suffering. And that sensitivity later became part of what audiences felt when they watched her. By 16, she was working in a way that hinted at the force she would become. In 1983, she appeared in the family adventure film Bush Christmas, playing Helen Thompson, a stubborn farm girl who refuses to wait for adults to fix things. She rides a horse, chases thieves through rough bushland, and fights to save her family's farm. The film was shot deep in Queensland, far from city comfort, with real trails, real heat, long days, and pressure that did not care how young she was. It was a harsh first test, and it taught her early that acting was not only a pretty dream. It could be physical and demanding, and unforgiving. A few years later, the shift was dramatic, because the roles stopped being warm and safe and started cutting straight into fear. In 1989, she starred in Dead Calm, playing a grieving woman whose marriage is cracking after the loss of a child. A strange man appears from a sinking ship and turns their quiet sea journey into a nightmare. Her husband disappears overboard, and she is left on a yacht with a dangerous stranger who keeps moving closer. What makes it tense is the way she has to survive using her mind, pretending, flirting, stalling, finding seconds wherever she can, while terror sits behind her eyes. Director Philip Noyce later spoke about how fearless she was in those tight scenes, and the industry noticed too, because it did not feel like a young actress playing fear. It felt like someone who understood it. That same year, she also filmed the TV miniseries Bangkok Hilton, playing Kat Stanton, a young Australian woman tricked into carrying heroin who ends up trapped in a Thai prison known for cruelty and overcrowding. Australian audiences were pulled in, and the performance traveled beyond Australia as well, because it proved she could carry heavy, morally dark material for hours, not just in a single film. By then, Hollywood attention started circling. A powerful New York agent saw Dead Calm and reportedly flew to Australia because he believed she was a rare kind of talent. Suddenly, she was not only a promising actress. She was a name that executives whispered about as if they had discovered something first. That moment came when Philip Noyce recommended her to Tom Cruise for Days of Thunder, the 1990 racing blockbuster about a cocky NASCAR driver. Cruise watched Dead Calm at Noyce's urging, and pushed for her to be cast as the neurosurgeon who becomes his character's love interest. It became her first major Hollywood lead, and it forced Los Angeles to see her as more than an interesting discovery from Australia. From there, the public story turned into a romance story, and it moved fast enough to feel unreal. In 1990, just months after Days of Thunder, they married on Christmas Eve in a civil ceremony in Telluride, Colorado, with only a small group present and no big public celebration. The secrecy only fed more speculation, especially because Cruise's connection to Scientology was already a topic of public discussion. Then the private pain arrived. Nicole suffered an ectopic pregnancy, a life-threatening condition that required emergency surgery, and it left her grieving as well as frightened. She later spoke about the yearning and the loss, and how it stays with you, aching and heavy. After that, fear around pregnancy became real. In the years that followed, they adopted 2 children, Isabella in 1992 and Connor in 1995. The family looked complete from the outside, but the inside of it was more complicated, built alongside loss, intense public attention, and constant pressure. When the marriage ended in 2001, the split did not just break a relationship, it shook her whole identity. She was 33, 10 years into a life where her name was often attached to his, and then suddenly she was alone in the spotlight. In a raw interview, she described feeling both freed and devastated at the same time, like the ground had disappeared under her feet while a door opened in front of her. Some people in Hollywood seemed to pull away as if divorce made her contagious. Yet what she did next is where the story turned sharp. Because she did not fade. She sprinted. That same year, she made Moulin Rouge, playing Satine, a glamorous courtesan in 1899. Paris living inside glitter and love songs while dying of tuberculosis. During that period, her personal life was collapsing, but on set she threw herself into the work, singing, dancing, pushing through injuries, and creating a performance that felt like heartbreak dressed in velvet. Then she starred in The Others, filmed in Spain as a mother living in a foggy mansion after World War II. Its twist is still remembered because it flips the entire fear onto its head. Released in the same year as Moulin Rouge, it showed her range in a way that silenced anyone who thought she only had one lane. Then she went even further, choosing roles that erased glamour and demanded transformation. In The Hours, she disappeared into Virginia Woolf with a prosthetic nose, weight gain, and a severe look that made her almost unrecognizable. The performance won her the biggest awards, including the Oscar, and it felt like proof that she was not rebuilding herself by playing safe. She was rebuilding by taking risks that could have failed publicly. Around this time, another pain sat quietly in the background. After the divorce, the kids were raised closely within Cruz's world, and Scientology's role in their family became part of the public narrative. Reports over the years have claimed that rules around distancing from non-members played a role in how often Nicole could see them. Whatever the full truth of those private details, what can be said is simple and heavy. Nicole has spoken cautiously and rarely about the situation, but when she does, the emotion is clear. It is the kind of loss that does not get solved by success. Even when her career hit rough patches, she kept moving. In Dogville, directed by Lars von Trier, she performed on a bare soundstage marked like a map, pushing emotion to a breaking point again and again through endless takes. In Cold Mountain, she committed to the harshness of survival, stripping away polish until she looked like a person carved by hardship. Then she stepped into 9 Perfect Strangers as Masha, a Russian wellness guru with a calm voice and a sharp edge. Nicole shaved her eyebrows, committed to the accent, and stayed in character so deeply that she reportedly kept a cold distance on set to protect the mood. The show became a massive hit for Hulu. When she was cast as Lucille Ball in Being the Ricardos in 2021, the backlash hit before the film even arrived. Social media exploded with complaints, petitions circulated, and the anger turned ugly enough that Nicole nearly quit. Director Aaron Sorkin begged her to stay, insisting he needed her spirit more than a perfect match of features. By the end, the performance earned her another Oscar nomination, and the noise lost its power because the work spoke louder. Then, in 2024, she delivered Baby Girl, playing a powerful New York CEO whose controlled life begins to crack when a young intern challenges everything she thought she had locked away. Nicole admitted at Venice that the intensity affected her physically, that there were moments when she felt overwhelmed, even burned out by the work. The quote went viral overnight. Some mocked it, others praised her honesty. But no one looked away. And then came 2025, when the public story of her marriage began to change again. In late September, major outlets reported that Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban had separated after 19 years together. The actress filed for divorce from the country star after nearly 2 decades of marriage. Variety. A source close to the situation said Nicole had been trying to get them to work on their marriage and did not want the news to become public, adding that the two had been spending a lot of time apart and had been living separate lives. Yahoo! What made it feel even sharper was how quickly the legal steps followed. Their divorce was finalized on January 6, 2026, with Kidman granted custody for 306 days out of the year, and Urban granted 59 days. Nicole spent her first Christmas since the split in familiar surroundings, celebrating Christmas Eve in her native Sydney with her 2 girls. Photos from the holiday showed her relaxed and smiling, wearing her natural curls as she embraced a lower-key celebration. Parade. The details people argued about online were not the point. The point was that after nearly 2 decades, the marriage that once survived a relapse, and all the pressure finally ended in silence, the kind of ending that leaves everyone filling the gaps with guesses. Then came the first time Nicole spoke in a way that felt like an answer, even though she avoided giving one. In a cover story for Variety, the Oscar legend admitted that the deeply personal situation forced her into a kind of retreat. Last year, I was quiet. I had other things going on. I was in my shell, she said. Variety, when asked directly how she was doing since the split, she did not lean into drama. She did not try to win the internet. She said she was moving toward what was good, described her gratitude for her family, and drew a clean line, everything else I don't discuss out of respect. Fox News. Then she said something that nobody expected from a woman in the middle of public grief and private chaos. She declared that 2026 was her year. Now I'm in a place of saying, 2026. Here we go. I have practical magic with Sandy. I'll be in full witch mode. Fox News. The room went quiet for a moment, because the message was not just about movies. It was a woman at 58, fresh out of a marriage she didn't want to end, with 2 teenage daughters and the world watching, and instead of retreating, she was accelerating. She can currently be seen in the new Amazon Prime Video series Scarpetta, where she stars alongside Jamie Lee Curtis. She also recently completed work on a sequel to Practical Magic with Sandra Bullock, and is set to reprise her role as Celeste Wright in a 3rd season of Big Little Lies. HuffPost her upcoming slate also includes Lioness Season 3, Margot's Got Money Troubles, Girls and Their Horses, and Discretion. Yahoo! That is not a woman slowing down. That is a woman who has decided the next chapter will not be defined by what she lost. She centered her daughters in every answer, repeating a line that sounded like the only thing she wanted the world to hear, that they are a family and they will continue to be one. News it landed because it was simple, and because it was clearly a boundary. Whatever happened between husband and wife, she was drawing a circle around the girls and saying the story would not touch them. She called them her beautiful girls, her darlings who are suddenly women. Fox News. In that same stretch, she hinted at how hard the previous year had been, describing a version of herself that pulled inward while the cameras stayed outside. While discussing her role as forensic pathologist Dr. K. Scarpetta, Nicole even hinted that she used her real-life grief and loss to help convey emotion in the role. Hello! That is the thing about her that has never changed across 4 decades. She does not waste the pain. She puts it somewhere it can be felt by strangers. In the nearly 25 years since she won the Oscar for The Hours, Kidman has become Hollywood's preeminent worker bee, and 2026 will be another banner year. Variety. The message felt clear without being cruel. She was not disappearing, and she was not waiting to be rescued by a new chapter. She was writing it herself, with her daughter's clothes and a slate of work that would exhaust someone half her age. At 58, Nicole Kidman is not in a quiet corner somewhere, processing her losses in private. She is on set, in character, pushing herself past the edge again, because that is the only way she has ever known how to move forward.